And the song went on, and all we could do is stare at it. And as I kind of looked to the sides to see all the children's faces, you could see the glow of the orb reflecting off their faces, and it made everything around us so much darker because that's what light does when something's really bright and you can see the reflection of the light, but everything else becomes so dim because the light is so bright and it subdues any other light that's around it. And we all just sat there and listened, and all at once we could hear this voice, and it wasn't like the sound of the singing. We could hear that, but this was something completely different. This is like thinking, and we could hear the voice in our heads, but you could tell also that it wasn't our own. And as we all were hit with the voice at the same time, we kind of just looked at each other, and you could tell it was our thoughts, and it was in our voice like we hear it inside of our head, but we weren't the ones making the thought. And I don't know how to explain it better than that, but the the voice welcomed us, and it said something to the effect of, we have not seen your like here, and we hope that we can be in this place together and get to know each other. And uh, it essentially asked us questions and asked, is this your first time here? And I found myself nodding, and I noticed that the children around me were also nodding, and it was as if we were all being talked to at the same time. And but it wasn't anything that we could hear. It was just something that we knew and was being communicated to us. So the voice described the woods as an ancient woods, and some of the oldest in the land that they were. And there it was inhabited by creatures, the protectors, much like it, and that it was one of many that were of this woods and were from the woods, but they were they without being able to put it into the words that was described to us in a was they were spirits. Okay, that there's no other way to describe it. And they essentially said that they were the spirits of the woods, and that they were very old, and that they were put there by the one, and that they were set to take care of this land, and they were not separate from the land, but were of the land, that there was no difference between them and the trees and the things that were around them, that they were all networked together. And this is, again, not doing justice to the situation that I was in, or we were in, and what we were learning, but um, it was something otherworldly. And as it talked, it began to sing to us again and essentially tell us the story of how things grew and how they worked together, and how everything was dependent on everything else, and how these small plants in the shade can't grow without the big trees that give it the shade and that needs the light that gives it allows it to grow that big, and how everything works together. And the fact that everything works together allows the spirits to be there and to translate what it is. It's almost like the how everything worked together became a consciousness that could be described, that could describe itself. It was really an interesting way of thinking. And as we sat there, we listened, and it was it was settling. It was comforting. It was like where we needed to be, and we could feel the connection with each other. And you know that feeling when somebody walks up to you and you know they're there without hearing them or seeing them, and you just know that they're there, but it's not the kind that you jerk and you're like startled, but it's a comforting thing, like a parent or a friend that you knew was there, but you didn't hear them, and all, like, you were okay that they were there even though you didn't hear them or see them or anything like that. At least that's the best way I can describe it. So we sat there in the darkness as the orb explained these things to us and continued to sing. And I can't I don't know when I fell asleep or when any of the other kids fell asleep, but the next thing I knew, I was waking up and it was morning, and the children were already chattering, and they were all confirming, like we had done that night. Did you see it? Did you hear it? That voice, it was so weird. It was my voice. It really wasn't my voice. And there was this connection, and I felt like I was there, and I could feel everything around me, and I knew where things were, and I knew how everything worked together. And did you feel that too? Yeah, I felt that too. And all the kids were just uh, going off in this excited uh, discussion of the experience that we shared, and the confirmation that, yeah, it did really happen and it wasn't just a dream. So after this all was going on and everything, and after a while, and after the conversations and the affirmation of the experience was realized, the kids started saying, we got to go tell mom and dad. We got to tell the people in the village about this. So they scrambled to pick up all their things and get it all organized. And as we broke camp, we looked back one last time to kind of take in this situation of where we were and what we were doing. And we grabbed all of our stuff and we started heading back. And this was at a blistering pace. I mean, like, imagine all that excitement and all that energy from that experience, and you wanting to get back to tell somebody else. And considering that we already knew the paths that we had taken and all the landmarks, as we went back, we're like, there's the crooked tree, there's that weird bush, there's that group of rocks, there's that stump, here's those plants and things like that. And we followed our way back by landmarks, because that's all you can do in the woods is follow the sun and follow landmarks. So we actually got back all in one go. Like, we didn't stop, and we actually made it with plenty of time before sunset, which was amazing. But we got back, and all the kids ran to their huts and their parents and their cabins and their tents and whatever situation was established at the time, and they were running to find their parents because they knew that they would be back from work or doing whatever that they were doing. And they started telling their parents about this. Well, the next morning was a very different story. So the children not only came to me, but their parents did too. And all of them started to essentially yell at me, and they're like, what are you doing with our kids? Why are they saying this nonsense? We were putting our trust in you, and you're filling their heads with garbage. And how can we trust you if you're teaching our kids to think these ways and to talk about these things, and you must be obviously drugging them or giving them weird plants or something to that effect. And the trust of the parents was completely gone. In this whole situation was so absurd that they refused to acknowledge that it could even possibly be real. But ultimately, they told me that I needed to stay away from their children. And if you want to continue to stay in this settlement, I better stay away from them. So this is how it went. And so I wasn't allowed to see the children. And so as I would sit there and I would do the things that I needed to do for myself and kept myself occupied and took my walks in the woods, every now and again, of course, we lived in a very small village. I don't even know if you could call it that. That's settlement. And I would see the kids and they would kind of give me these half smiles, kind of like, it's okay, we know what happened type of thing, but I can't talk to you because my parents said so, so I'll acknowledge you, but I can't really talk to you. And that's the way things went. And I pretty much kept my head down, and I would get the things that I would need and do the work that I would need, and kept my interactions down to a minimum. Well, as the weeks went by, the parents who still needed to do the work in the woods, or planting the crops, or tending to the livestock, or building the homes, or all the things that were part of our day-to-day life, they had to take the children with them. So little children were being brought into the woods and meant to carry sticks and wood and things like that, and or the kids would have to help plant fields or till the soil, and most of them weren't strong enough to do that. And ultimately the kids would get in the way of the adults, and they were able to help where they could, but considering that the adults had to keep them with them, or the kids would get bored, they became distractions to the parents or got in the way. So slowly the children started to go and do things off by themselves, and they would start talking and break into their little groups.